Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Talking with Talent. Today, I have Michelle Johnson with me, who, your line of work is actually a bit different to what we've had so far, and I'm so excited to talk about your life because you do a bit of everything, and you have spoken with the giants of industry. But yeah, would you mind telling our viewers what it is you actually do? Because obviously you're a
Yeah,
presenter,
absolutely.
you do this and that.
Yes, so I'm primarily a journalist and editor. Have been for about 10 years, and for about 6 years now, I've been presenting with Showmasters. So my career's sort of taken me from local magazines. I worked with Hello for about 6 years over on the national side, and was primarily, covering film, red carpets, that sort of thing. Um, and then since 2017, I've been with a luxury lifestyle magazine called Tempest, which I'm currently the editor of. They're owned by Vantage Media, so I'm the editorial director there. So various bits and pieces, working with a lot of different types of
Yeah.
people, types of client. But yeah, my kind of obsession with entertainment has kind of run through everything, I think.
Yeah. So I will ask you this first, as I ask everybody, how did it all begin? Was it presenting that started it off, or was it a completely different thing then you just sort of arrived here?
No, so that's a really good question. I I have that awkward thing. I always admire people who kind of have that light bulb moment and they're like, this is what I want to do. This is what this is my passion. This is my talent.
Hmm.
I sort of didn't have that. I like to think I sort of fell into things.
Okay.
Um, I was quite worried about becoming a journalist because I thought it would be really, really cutthroat.
Hmm.
So I sort of veered off towards marketing very early on, just after
Okay.
university. And then the credit crunch hit. So I was sending off my dissertation to various places. My dissertation was a bit niche. It was about Romany poetry. But yes, so just after university, I went into marketing with various sort of temp agencies, doing a lot of temp work. Tried to kind of avoid journalism like the plague because I was just
Hmm.
really scared of how cutthroat I thought it was going to be. But I sent off my dissertation, which was very niche, to lots of different publishers to find out if it had any legs, and
Hmm.
got involved with the University of Hertfordshire Press, which try saying that 3 times fast.
Yeah.
So I finished university, sent off my dissertation to various publishers, and got in touch with the Hertfordshire University Press, who had a Romanian traveller section in their department. And I ended up sub-editing an amazing biography by a British Romani activist called Maggie Smith Bendel.
Okay.
And it was just incredible. And I was doing that alongside my marketing work, realized how much I loved writing, realized that however scared I was about my preconceptions of the industry, I had to give it a go.
Hmm.
So I started looking for jobs. Of course, it's the middle of the credit crunch, so everyone said, well, you need every qualification going plus
Hmm.
about 6 years of experience before we'll even accept you on a graduate's course. So it's like, okay, great, lovely. So I ended up doing an NCTJ short course,
Uh-huh.
magazines at Harlow College, which is Harlow's where I'm from. So it's quite an easy decision. It's got a very good journalism school there. And after that, got into local magazines. After that, got into started working for Archant for a little while, which was an incredible trial by fire. I was their acting editor for a couple of months, and I did not have the experience necessary to do that job, but really gave it a go and loved it. It was such a learning experience. Um, and then somehow got a job at Hello Magazine, and sort of stayed there for 6, 7 years, worked in various departments, covered red carpets. I love film, love entertainment. So that's kind of where my passion was. My passion for interviews
Hmm.
was the thing I was really trying to keep going and to just dive into at every opportunity. Um, and then it was while I was there doing red carpets that the presenting sort of happened by rote. We just needed somebody to do it. So when we got junkets and they were video junkets, um, someone just had to do it. And so you would at that stage, we were all very young, and the team that was doing the entertainment side were very young, so we would just go ahead and give it a go.
Hmm.
And I found myself doing quite a few of those, obviously being on the red carpets themselves, if we were at BAFTA, if we were at the Archive events, BFI events. all of those, the theatrical events, the Olivier's we used to cover each year. So they required a little bit of a top and tail,
Yeah.
and it was just sort of learning as I went, and eventually fell in with the amazing guys at Showmasters. And I've been very, very lucky to kind of present at their conventions, so London Film and Comic Con,
Yeah.
Destination Star Trek, their Sherlock conventions, which Sherlock was the funniest, most brilliant convention I think I've ever been to. The people were absolutely hilarious, and then the kind of the audience interaction was so much fun. So I never really intended to get into presenting at all, and I still don't really consider myself a presenter as such. Journalism is definitely the day job,
Sure.
but it's really fun having that moment with an audience, and yeah, it's just brilliant fun.
So there's a question that I've been burning to ask you. So I've been exceedingly nervous about doing this interview because I'm basically interviewing someone who does this properly. Um, but there's a few things about using the red carpet, as you mentioned there. So it's something that actually came to me this morning, and I've no idea how it works. Do you have an allotted, like, because Michelle, you have interviewed everyone, and I'm going to throw up some pictures here. You've just to name a few. I know there's Michael Fassbender. You've met and worked with Leonardo DiCaprio, William
And
Shatner,
George Takei, who is that was one of my absolute highlights, as George Takei. That was incredible.
George Kay, George Clooney. So there's loads of them, and we'll come back to these guys later. But using the red carpet, do you have like an allotted slot, or do you have to get their attention? Is it like a conveyor belt system, so the person next to you goes and then they'll come to you? And how does it work? Because we always
Yeah,
see these interviews, but I've never actually thought about the process on how they stop at each person.
yeah, it's really interesting. It's changed so much. It's probably completely different now. I haven't been a regular red carpeter um, for a good 3.5 years now,
Right?
since
Okay.
moving to Tempest, because so Hello is obviously very entertainment based. Tempest, where I work now, where I'm the editor, is a luxury lifestyle magazine. So it's a very different audience, and therefore we have very different ways of capturing those stories. So I haven't done a red carpet in years. When I was there, I was so fascinated with that exact process, because when I first started, it was a little bit shouty. It was a little bit like,
Who are you wearing? Sorry.
yeah, you know what? Yes, it was. And as you kind of as it went on, there was a huge growth in social media for a start,
Yeah.
and there was a huge decline in how much celebrities wanted to talk to press, print press particularly. And there was, in my opinion, a whole debate about um, the authenticity of the quote, and could, if you said something stupid on a red carpet, if you, or not stupid, but something that was maybe misquoted, taken out of context, cut down,
Yeah.
there was no evidence for that. Whereas if it's on video, what you say and how you say it is put across exactly how it is. You've got complete control of how you put something across. So the context, if it gets misconstrued, it's kind of on you as the interviewee, as the celebrity.
Yeah.
And I think with the advent of social media and the growth of social media and taking control of what you put out there, so we saw fewer people wanting to sell baby stories, fewer people want to sell wedding stories, because you could break that news in your own way to your own fans with absolute control. And as that grew, the red carpet's changed a lot.
Right. Okay.
And I think the first of all, you have when a celebrity comes to red carpet, and it might not be true for all of them, but they'll have a certain amount of press they have to do. It'll be in the context of whatever film or TV show that they're partaking, as I'm sure you're familiar with. So perhaps they might have a deal with Disney, they might have a deal with Sky or the BBC, they might have some live slots. So those maybe 3 or 4 major TV spots will be scheduled down to the wire. And so whatever happens, they're going there at those times.
Right, I see.
Then their preference is, well, first of all, are they contracted to do more? Do they want to do more? Particularly if they've been a producer or a director or involved on the money side as well as the talent side, they might want to do a little bit more. and boost it if they're a huge star. So they might walk down the line, speak to video press, speak to radio press, speak to print press.
Mhm.
More so video
Yeah.
than anywhere else. When we get there as press, we'll be put into our clusters or our sections.
Okay.
So there might be a print cluster 1, print cluster 2.
Mhm.
There might be video cluster, or with the videos as well, they used to have little placards. So sometimes it seemed like we'd be in alphabetical order. Very often, hello was placed with hey you guys. They're an amazing blog and website, film-based, producer-based. You must check out that. Like, if you don't already know them, I love those guys to death. They're absolutely brilliant.
I'll pop it in below.
Please do, please do. They're fantastic. And so we obviously had very different audiences, which made it actually quite easy to work together. Because the one thing you don't want to do is waste the amount of questions that you've got, because very often the celebrity will have maybe 1 or 2 questions, which you'll be begging the PR or the publicist to get them to stop at you, or they might say, well, yeah, okay, but only if you're clustering and there's sort of 3 or 4 of you at the one time, or no, they don't want to talk to you, yes, they want to talk to you. And so they'll come down the line, but they'll only give you a couple of minutes.
It sounds so stressful. I'm genuinely like, oh God.
It is stressful, but it is very fun. And the thing I learned very quickly was don't over prepare.
Right,
Because
okay.
you could have, say Leonardo DiCaprio is walking down for a film that he's produced, and it's a sequel, and it's a Scorsese film, and you've got every question in the world going through your head. But if the person on your left, if say they're coming down from left to right, if the person on your left asks that question and you don't have anything else prepared, and it's happened. And I've seen it in others, and it's happened to me. It's awful. So you'd never over prepare, but you might chat to the person around you to find out what they're asking, so that you don't ask the same thing. And maybe you jump on the back of a question so that you keep the conversation flowing, or maybe you pick up something they've said in the press conference earlier that day to kind of keep some form of conversation going. And the really big key is building a rapport in seconds. That's the biggest challenge.
I know you speaking of the press conference, you actually did that with Brad Pitt, and in your interview that you put on, you said, as you said in XYZ, can you expand on that? Which obviously then led you into that natural sort of segue.
Yeah, and it's I think it's almost, I think it's like everything, isn't it? It's a bit of a comfort when you're talking to somebody who, even if you're not entirely familiar with them, there are really quick ways to relax a little bit with them. There are, if you've met them once before but you're not entirely sure, and you say, well, it's really nice to meet you again, that person is naturally at ease. If your body language is open, if you've got a smile on your face, if you're referencing an event that you were both at, these are things we do in networking. These are things we do in with friends and in parties. You try and find that similarity, or you find that shared experience. And so it's exactly the same thing. I think you just do it very quickly.
There sounds like there's so much pressure there, which is terrifying. Of the red carpet people, who has been your favorite to interview?
See, I was really scared when you first of all, I'm so flattered that you asked me to be on the show, but I was really scared that you were going to ask favorite questions, and you are, because I just don't know.
Okay, top 3. I'll give you.
Okay, it's even that.
Okay.
I think we mentioned Leonardo DiCaprio. That was definitely a really, really good one, because it was Wolf of Wall Street. I've interviewed him a couple of times on the red carpet, but I had a really lovely chat about Wolf of Wall Street, and sort of accidentally went a bit off piece and just asked questions about Martin Scorsese and the beats and how the film's put together. And it was a very kind of filmy, it was a very brief chat, but it was a very filmy chat. And it was just really lovely to kind of, as a Scorsese fan, chat to a Scorsese fan that's starred in his films. So it was a really lovely moment, and the cluster that we were asking similar questions, so it did kind of feel a bit less orchestrated and a bit more like a chat. The same, I think, for Tom Cruise. I've interviewed him a lot of times on the red carpet. He's a very generous interviewee. It takes a
Right.
lot of time for press. So that's always really fun because you sort of, all of the things that you know about him and his, or that you think you know about him and you think you know about his personal life and whatever's going on in the press, the moment he's in front of you, he's Tom Cruise movie star.
Sure.
And you're
Yeah.
just sort of like, this is mad.
Yeah.
And there was one really cool moment where he had, I think, I can't remember what year it was, but he had about 3 films in very short succession. So there were three film premieres. I think one was an awards ceremony, and then there were 2 premieres. And I was at them all. I interviewed him at all of them. And at one point, I think he knew my name. And I was like, I haven't seen my dad in 3 months, and I've seen Tom Cruise in 3 months. This is just ridiculous. So it was really, he's always really, really fun, and he gives a lot. If he likes your questions, he gives you a lot of time.
That's cool. Yeah.
And also he was one of the first people I interviewed on the red carpet. So
wow.
I have a soft spot. Similarly, Daniel Radcliffe, interviewed him a lot of times, and he's the only celebrity I've ever met who will stand in front of a print cluster. This is post Harry Potter, by the way. I think this is Woman in Black. And he'll say, sorry, has anyone not had a question yet?
Oh, bless him.
He is the nicest man in showbiz. And then, there's just been some amazing people like Dame Judi Dench, who you're just in awe of.
Yeah.
And you kind of don't care what quote you get. It's just, I'm speaking
to you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really fun. I think the most fun part of the red carpet are the press that you're with.
Right. Okay.
Because you have to keep warm for a start. It's when we used to do them at Cineworld, it was inevitably raining. Yeah. It's hours before anyone shows up because you have to be locked down in the cluster and everything has to be safe and the fans have to be riled up and then it takes a while to get out and all of you are rushing off to do the edits and you end up having really silly games and dance offs and really, really fun. And you see the same people all the time as well. So we're a really tight-knit group when I was doing it, and it was just great. We used to joke that everyone thought it was very glamorous, but actually you're just standing in the rain for 3 hours waiting for someone to ignore you.
So how was the shift between going from red carpet to this much more sort of working with Tempus, which we'll get onto in a little bit, but you now do kind of one-on-one interviews where it's a lot more sort of relaxed and you're either in a prepared place or a hotel suite. I'm assuming, I'm not sure actually, but it always looks very fancy. How is the different in the dynamic?
So I don't think that's necessarily something that's new. I mean, I've been doing one-on-one interviews for my entire career, even when we were in local papers and local magazines. When you have that opportunity to kind of sit down with somebody, it's a real privilege. And I think what a lot of people I think maybe don't realize is that a lot of interviews, I think you can tell when you've met that person because it kind of just brings that flavor out. But ultimately you might be doing interviews via email or via phone or via now Skype and Zoom. So there's a lot of having that flexibility isn't necessarily new to journalists, I don't think. I think we kind of just pounce on what we can when we can. But I love a one-on-one. I love kind of sitting down in that more relaxed way, like you say. And you can really, I also love interviewing people who are perhaps outside of the entertainment industry now, and talking about business and leadership and philanthropy and that kind of side of things, because it's a very different dynamic in terms of, what's important to them, the media training, how guarded they might be, or what part of their lives they're guarded about. So for instance, if you're a CEO, then you want to make sure you're giving the absolute best representation of your company.
Sure.
But you're not so worried about someone prying into your personal life. Whereas I think even if you've promised that you won't, we've seen on television interviews, with huge stars, a lot of those things are the questions will perhaps be pre-organized.
Yes, yeah.
But the pressure from the outlet might be you have to get a question in about something that's happened in the past, or their children, or their husband, or their wives. A question that we all despair having to ask, I think,
Yeah.
very often, because it's something that you kind of feel that you have to, but
Yeah.
what's it giving to you or your interviewee or the reader? So it's a really interesting dynamic, but I love a one-on-one. I love a sit down.
Mm.
And I think it is just that ability to have a bit more of a chat and to
Yeah.
find out, to take the time, even if it's only 15 minutes, you have a little bit more time to weave the conversation into what their passion is. And if you
Yeah.
can find out what someone's passion is, that's where you get the really good quotes.
For instance, let's take the conventions that you do. Do you
Mm.
have like a warm-up ritual that you do backstage before you go on, or are you sort of loosey-goosey anyway?
I a little bit.
Love
I
that
don't.
phrase.
I love loosey goosey. That's really nice. I do. I do. I don't think I have a very strict set of rituals. I don't have a strict warm up, but I definitely try to um, do little confidence boosters. So I try to give myself time a little bit before to go to the bathroom, um, have a quiet moment.
Mm.
If I have to like do a Wonder Woman pose or whatever, if I'm feeling a bit nervous, and like look myself in the eyes in the mirror and smile. And I know that might seem a bit odd, but I think to try and kind of calm down.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Get rid of the pressure.
Yeah.
I always try and practice my first question,
Okay.
because very often I have subjects but not set questions, because I think I'm quite a conversational interviewer.
Mm-hmm.
But I often fluff, as you have seen today. Always fluff that first thing, so I'll always stumble. Making sure that I introduce myself and have time to have a really quick chat first.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
that's very important, I found.
yeah, so I really like to, because you do similar, don't you? You've done, is it Berlin and some places like that as
Yes, so
well?
I presented in Essen in Germany,
Yes, that was it.
which I'm actually going to back onto in a second because I've got a question that happened to me that I'm hoping happened to you too. I
It
need
probably
some. Yeah.
did.
Um, have you ever, and this is coming from personal experience, and I didn't know I did this. So I was, for those of you who don't know, I was working with Asmodee Live, and we were at Essen Spiel, which is a huge board game convention. It hosts millions across 5 days, and I think we were also presenting to. I think we reached about 2 million in total viewers at one point in the stream, which was like, terrifying.
Amazing, amazing.
But have you ever called someone by the wrong name?
Yes.
Oh, thank God! Thank God! And may I ask who it was?
I called Kelsey Grammer Fraser.
Oh, that's bad.
It was really bad. It was really bad.
Oh, that's
Really bad.
brilliant.
So thank you so much for your time, Fraser.
Oh, you've made my life. That's fine.
And because it was the end of the interview, and the end of the interview was reflecting on Fraser Crane
Sure.
and the legacy of the character, and he kept referring it to Fraser as, not to say this is anyway his fault, this is my fault, this is my problem. But he kept saying I, as in the cat. So when someone's played a character for so long, it very much becomes me and I. Called him Fraser, didn't I? Awful.
That is brilliant.
That was awful.
How did he react? Did he clock it or?
He pretended he didn't hear. He was very generous. He pretended he didn't hear.
Oh,
While
outstanding.
I begged for the world to swallow me whole.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Awful.
how is going back to the conventions? How is it? Because you've certainly done it with. I mean, to use the convention I did, people. It wasn't exactly like I was presenting to a full crowd. It was more people were going in and out of the halls, because in conventions, if you've ever been to one, they tend to be like these halls the size of football fields, and about 7 of them back to back, and that's definitely how it is in Essen. And so people didn't really stop to watch. However, you do the Star Trek conventions, and you did a Game of Thrones convention. Am I right in thinking that?
I haven't had the privilege. I'd love to do a Game of Thrones convention. I've been lucky enough to host a bunch of the Game of Thrones cast at LFCC, at London Film and Comic Con.
That was it, yeah. when you're presenting at these conventions, how is it presenting in front of all these people and probably hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people watching you, and actually in front of you? That's something that I imagine must be quite overwhelming.
Terrifying.
Yeah.
Terrifying. Like I said, I didn't intend to become a presenter, so it was sort of an accident, a very lovely, very kind accident that I'm endlessly grateful for. But they took a punt on me for Destination Star Trek, and so I was at the Voyager stage. It's one of the smaller stages, as you say, in the hall. You know, you've got the main stage, and you've got a couple of smaller ones. And so I was on the Voyager and got to host some really, really fun, really cool panels. Actually, that I love Destination Star Trek because it is very much like they go deep. The actors go deep, the fans go deep, the subjects are just like, you know, you don't talk about, oh hey, here's a Dak sandwich. You talk about what it means when two actors play a character, or what the philosophical thing is about having one character played by two actors in two things, and all of it's just brilliant. So it's a real privilege. But that was big enough. And I remember being incredibly nervous the first one I did back in 2016. And I didn't really know how it was going to go down. And so I was sort of just telling myself, you know, if it fails, you've tried. But the first one I did, I was really nervous, and it was a huge audience. And I was just taking, my breath was sort of getting stuck in my throat. You know that feeling when you're just, you know what, you're trying to think of too many things at once. You're trying to think, stay calm, smile, answer the question, listen to that question, make sure that it's not a rude question or it has enough of a question for her to answer so they get their moment. And you're trying to think of too many things at once. Is my skirt riding up, you know? And it was just getting caught in my breath. And Terry Farrell, one of the actors, phenomenal woman, she leaned over, just kind of gestured for me to put the mic down while another actress was talking, and just leaned over and whispered in my ear, breathe, you're doing great, just breathe. And afterwards she was just like my you know, fairy godmother of that convention. She was an angel. She checked in with me to make sure that, you know, she said, oh, I saw you do XYZ, really, really, like, she was just fantastic. And that advice is just, and that kindness that, you know, you're part of a team, even on stage, even when you're just the host, you're still part of that team. You know, you're not on your own, even if you feel like you are. You don't have the world on your shoulders, even if you feel like you do. Just like when you're working in a magazine, it's never you on your own, you're part of a team. So that has really helped me with the nerves.
Has there been a moment where it's been either just pure joy? I mean, obviously it's all fantastic, but has there been a standout moment for you that was just kind of out of this world? Or
a moment I was like, you know, I can't believe it. So I had the great privilege of interviewing Kate Mulgrew, who obviously is known from Orange Is the New Black and Star Trek as Janeway. She's my captain. And so that was, I couldn't believe it. And then, you know, the next year, George Takei, and he spoke so movingly about his time, you know, as a child in internment camps. And it was just, I can't believe, everyone was just wrapped. You could have heard a pin drop. It was unreal. And, you know, you get moments like that. And then you get moments with the Game of Thrones cast who are just hysterical. They're just the funniest people you've ever seen. And the seconds they would, like I said earlier, he was trying to throw the trident, and the whole cast just jumped immediately behind their chairs. And I was like, oh, this is going to go badly. This is brilliant. And then, of course, you get the other side of things. So at DST, there's so much interest in space and in exploration. So people from the ESA and NASA were there, and so Fred Hayes, he was giving talks throughout the convention. So obviously from Apollo 11, Apollo 13.
Yes.
One of the Apollos.
There is, yeah.
The one that Tom Hanks was on. And and he was just unbelievable. And then afterwards, you know, he was in the green room and invited us all to sit with him and was just telling us even more stories.
Yeah.
And so it's just hearing those stories from the people that have lived them was just unbelievable.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. No, I certainly know what you mean. I I think for me, I had a moment. It was actually day one, and it was because I'd never done this sort of stuff before, and it was when they went, "Oh right, we are live in three, two," and I was like, "Holy sh!" So, like,
Do
it
you
was
find,
euphoric.
yeah, but do you find that there is just this part of you, this sort of this professional? I think of mine as journo shell. That's what I call her.
Okay.
That just sort of settles, and you're like, you can be as nervous as anything, but when someone says, "Right, it's down to you now,"
Mm.
you represent. You just you something inside you kind of goes, "Okay."
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said about in theatre when people say as soon as you can be nervous in the wings, but as soon as you walk on and the lights hit you, you're fine. And there is some truth to that. And I think it's as soon as you need to be on, I think not even just performers and actors. I think people for the most part, when you need to be on, you deliver. But yeah. So
Yeah.
moving on to your oh sorry.
No, I'm sorry. Sorry.
Okay.
I think it's a really good point to say that it's across. So it's everyone. It's people.
Yeah, yeah.
It's this incredible resilience that we have. It's amazing,
Mm,
and I think we're very lucky because we're in an industry that taps into that quite often.
yes.
Whether
Yeah.
it's media or theatre or entertainment, you're often put under a very specific type of pressure where you do have to go from to hi,
Yeah.
and and all of us will say, "Oh, I've got stage fright. I hate public speaking," and then we just go ahead and do it. And I
Yeah.
think we're very, very lucky to be in an industry that kind of taps into that resilience that we all have.
What I was going to go on to is obviously you have had. I've been scrolling through your Instagram this morning and reading about your life as you've gone along, and you've had the I've completely blanked on the word. You've had the, I guess, privilege to be sent to all corners of the globe in your recent job. This is with Tempus, which is
Yes,
your current job, and is it with Tempus that you're going and kind of trotting around the globe to these places?
yeah. I've been really, really. I'm so lucky. I love travel anyway. So I always try to, obviously not in 2020,
Yeah.
but try to kind of see new places and get my feet on new ground. But I've been really lucky in my career that I've had some fantastic opportunities. Even way back when I was a bit younger as well, I managed to go to the Hobbit locations, and it was their location manager that was our tour guide,
Oh,
and I
wow.
had to run off. We landed a helicopter in a farm, and then there was the farmland, the glacier, and then the mountain.
Mhm.
And it was just three completely different ecosystems at once. And there was the rock that Gandalf disappeared into, and I had to run away and do a bit of a squee. I couldn't cope. Um, and then more recently, I've been lucky enough to visit places like Belize last year, which was just again had this wild moment in um, in a rainforest where I have a bit of a dodgy knee and got bitten by ants, and it hurt so much. It was horrible while we were all trying to hike. And I just couldn't do it. And I looked at this steep slope and I was like, I can't, I might be able to get up, but I'm never going to get down.
No, no, no.
And I got really upset and I was kind of with the group and I was like, guys, I'm so sorry. I don't want to ruin this for anyone, but I need to go back. But luckily enough, found out that that was the most difficult hike that the rainforest offered.
Oh,
So
okay.
I was like, well, are any of them okay for me to just wander around? And he was like, well, yeah, if you go on this one, it's very, very safe. And
Mhm.
you'll just go around in a circle, but you'll still be in the rainforest. So I just had this mad 2 hours of just wandering around a rainforest, kind of pretending I was in a, I don't
Absolutely.
know, just made up a little story in my head and loves life. Had a real moment. It was gorgeous.
Yeah.
Absolutely stunning. Love
So
Belize.
you said they say it was safe to. So was the hike you were on originally not safe in a
Yes,
sense of
but that was more guided.
okay.
Um, and that was a group one as well. So for the more difficult hikes, if
Uh-huh.
you're not an experienced hiker, they wouldn't suggest going off and doing it on your own because it was like
I
a really steep
see. Right,
climb and
okay.
then down to a waterfall, very slippery.
Uh-huh. So
Yeah,
it wasn't like wildlife dangerous. It's not that there
no.
was oh I see. Okay, cool.
Well, most of the wildlife is nocturnal,
Sure.
and as long as you stay on the trail, you're okay.
Yeah,
So the
yeah.
more they had levels. It was I want to say Boscombe, Coxcomb Wildlife Sanctuary in
Mhm.
Belize, and it's so cool. But they have a whole range of hikes you can do. some very easy, very safe, some hard, like very difficult, but
Mm,
also safe, and others, you know, more dangerous for other reasons.
sure.
So they kind of say if you're an experienced hiker, these are the ones you need a guide for. So they're very,
Yeah.
very cool. There are, I want to say panthers. I think it's one of the only places where they are one of the only wildlife sanctuaries where they're really well known for just having loads of panthers. It's incredible.
Wow. That's awesome. Did you see a panther?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
So a really, really pretty bird
that's good.
and a lot
That's
of
good.
ants, a lot of really vicious ants.
Like red, brown. Is it brown
These
ants
ones were
that
black
bite?
ants. They're like these ones were black ants,
Okay.
and they're massive. They were
Yeah.
huge, and they were like putting your foot into stingnails and then just waving it around for about 10 minutes in stingingness. It was horrible, horrible.
Jeez. So, did you? Sounds a daft question, but did you notice they were on you, or is it just they?
Yeah,
Okay, right.
yeah. So what happens is ants you're fine with as long as you don't interrupt their lines.
Yeah.
But everyone in front of me had stopped to look at a queen, and I was on all of the lines, and I'm
Oh
sort of
God.
in the back going, ah! And everyone's like, wow,
Please keep moving.
she's really putting this on, isn't she? She's really she's not very strong with these ants, is she? She's really making a meal of this. And then later on, one of them got bit, and they were like, I see. I see.
Oh, geez, that's yeah. So is that the um? There's a photo where it's kind of like a backdrop of this forest, and you're in like a jacuzzi or something. Was that the rainforest, or was that a different place?
Oh no, no, no. So that might have been, gosh,
It was
am I being really silly? Am I kind of like legs akimbo?
probably, yeah.
'Cause
I think that's about right.
if so, that was Sri Lanka. Me and my friend went a few years ago,
Oh,
and
okay.
was lucky enough to review this brand new, which would be excellent for 2020. Actually, it's a huge. I can't remember how many acres
Hmm.
of mountaintop land with 5 villas in it,
Oh, wow.
just
Okay.
5, and then a
Mhm.
central little hut in the center that has the infinity pool and the restaurant and all of that kind of thing. And it's the other side of the Kandy. So in Sri Lanka, you've got the mountain regions and Kandy in the Midlands. Most of the luxury resorts are on this side of the mountain,
Mm.
looking that way. This one's on this side of the mountain, so it's almost a unique view of
Wow.
that region,
Yeah, yeah,
and just totally isolated.
yeah.
So a really good one for 2020.
Yeah. I mean, we're
That
kind of
was
coming to the end of it now, but
that was a hell of a
2021.
that was a hell of a view to wake up to, though.
Yeah, I bet. I bet. Yeah. Wow. Well, I mean, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been honestly so fascinating. I hope everyone watching has found it interesting and a bit of a different interview today on sort of what you get up to as a presenter and journalist. So thank you so much for joining me, everyone. This has been Michelle Johnson, and yeah, stay safe and stay creative, everyone. See you next time.